The night was calm and quiet when everything changed forever. The stars shone bright above the mountains, and a soft wind moved over the trees and rocks of Mountain Ridge Valley. Inside a small observatory on top of a lonely hill, a young astrophysicist named Daniel Ward was working alone. He loved nights like this. The sky was clear, the air was cold, and the world felt peaceful. He sat in front of several screens, checking data from telescopes and radar systems, expecting a normal quiet shift. He had no idea that he was about to see something that would break every rule he had ever learned about physics. Daniel was used to strange signals. Sometimes he saw satellites passing by. Sometimes he saw space junk or weather balloons. Sometimes there were errors in the software that made false lines appear on the radar. He was trained to stay calm and logical, to never jump to wild ideas. That was the way of science. Check everything, doubt everything, believe only when there is proof. That night, he was reviewing star movement data when a small blinking dot appeared on one of his radar screens. At first, he did not care. Just another object, he thought. But then it moved. The dot did not move like a normal aircraft. It did not follow a straight path. It did not curve smoothly. Instead, it jumped. In 1 second, it was in one position, and in the next second, it was far away, as if it had skipped across space. Daniel frowned and leaned closer. He checked the timestamps. The object was moving huge distances in almost no time. According to the radar data, it was traveling so fast that any normal object would burn up, break apart, or crush under its own speed. But this one did not. It was moving as if speed limits did not exist. Daniel ran a quick system check. Maybe the radar was broken. Maybe there was interference. He restarted the program. The glitch did not disappear. The blinking dot was still there, still moving in impossible jumps. He checked another system. The second system showed the same thing. 2 separate machines, 2 separate sensors, 1 impossible object. His heart began to beat faster. This was not a simple error. Something real was in the sky above the valley. He activated the external camera that pointed at the region where the radar showed the object. At first, the screen showed only darkness and stars. Then, slowly, a soft silver light appeared. It was small at first, like a star, but it grew bigger and brighter as it moved closer. Daniel left his chair and rushed outside the observatory, his breath turning to white cloud in the cold air. He looked up. There it was. Hovering above the valley was a craft unlike anything he had ever seen. It was long and smooth, shaped like a stretched oval or a seed made of metal. It did not have wings. It did not have engines. It did not have propellers or exhaust. It was just there, floating in the air, glowing softly with a cold silver-blue light. What shocked Daniel even more was the space around it. The stars behind the craft looked slightly bent, like reflections in water. The air around it shimmered, as if reality itself was rippling. Daniel felt his mouth go dry. All his years of studying physics suddenly felt small and weak. He knew about gravity, motion, acceleration, energy. He knew that any aircraft must fight gravity using engines or wings. But this thing did not seem to care about gravity at all. It did not move like it was being pushed. It moved like it was choosing where reality should place it next. The craft tilted slightly to one side. For a moment, Daniel thought it would fall or fly away with a loud sound. Instead, it did something else. It simply vanished. Not slowly, not with a trail, not with fire. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. The sky looked normal again. The stars were clear. The valley was dark. The air was still. Daniel stood there for a few seconds, frozen in shock. Then his training took over. He ran back inside. He knew he needed to save all the data before anyone could change it or delete it. His fingers moved fast over the keyboard as he collected radar logs, camera footage, and sensor readings. He stored everything on a secure drive. His mind was racing. He knew what he had just seen would challenge every scientist on Earth. A craft that could move without inertia. A craft that ignored acceleration. A craft that seemed to bend space around itself. It defied every law of physics he knew. There was only one person he trusted enough to share this with, Dr. Lena Hayes. Lena was older than Daniel and much more experienced. She worked in a government aerospace research division and had access to high-level information. Daniel had studied under her in university, and she had always pushed him to think deeply, to question everything. If anyone could help him understand what he had just seen, it was her. With shaking hands, he called her on a secure line. "Lena, you need to see this," he said, his voice low and unsteady. "Daniel, it's 3 in the morning," she replied. "Is it an emergency?" "Yes," he answered. "It's not a glitch. It's not a satellite. It's something else." There was a long pause. Then she said, "I'm coming." Lena arrived at the observatory the next morning. Her face was tired but serious. She sat down next to Daniel, and he showed her the radar logs. He explained how the object moved, how it jumped from one point to another, how it ignored normal acceleration. She looked at the numbers and slowly shook her head. "This speed, this pattern," she whispered, "nothing we know can do this." Then Daniel played the video from the night before. They watched the glowing craft hover over the valley. They watched the stars bend behind it. They watched it tilt and vanish. Lena leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the screen. When the video ended, there was silence in the room. "Daniel," she said softly, Do you understand what this means? If this is real and it looks very real, then our physics is incomplete. Completely incomplete. This craft is not just advanced, it is beyond us. He nodded, feeling both proud and terrified. So what do we do? He asked. We have to report it, she said. Officially. This can't stay only with us. But once we do, others will come. Military, government, people with power. They will try to control this, hide it, maybe even bury it. Daniel looked at the drive in his hand, a small object containing something that could change the world. He thought about the quiet, simple life he had before this night. He knew that, after this, nothing would ever be simple again. Do you trust them? He asked Lena. She did not answer immediately. She looked out the window at the wide open sky above the valley where the craft had appeared. I don't know, she said finally, but I know this. The universe just showed us something impossible. We can't pretend we didn't see it. Outside, the sun rose slowly over the mountains, turning the sky from dark blue to soft gold. It looked like any other morning, but for Daniel and Lena, and for the world that would soon hear their story, this was the morning after the first meeting with a craft that defied every known law of physics. And somewhere, out there beyond the blue sky, Daniel felt sure that the craft was still watching. You said. The morning after Daniel showed Lena the footage, everything moved faster than he expected. Before noon, 2 dark government vehicles arrived at the observatory. Several officials stepped out, some in uniforms, some in plain suits, and none of them looked friendly. Lena spoke quietly with one of them, her face tense. Daniel watched from a distance, feeling his stomach twist. He had always dreamed of discovering something big, something historic, but he never imagined the discovery would pull him into a world of secrecy and pressure. The officials entered the observatory, checked his computers, copied files, and asked heavy questions in calm but sharp voices. They wanted to know whether anyone else had seen the data. They wanted to know if he had shared the footage. They wanted to know why he had been awake at that hour. Daniel knew the truth. They were scared, not of him but of what he had discovered. When they left, they told him and Lena to pack their things. You're coming with us, one of them said firmly. You're needed somewhere secure. Daniel looked at Lena, searching for guidance. She nodded, though it was clear she was not entirely comfortable. It's okay, Daniel, she said softly. This is bigger than the observatory. We have to go. They were taken to a hidden government research base deep in a desert region. The facility was enormous and heavily guarded. It had no signs, no windows, and no name. Inside, the hallways were long and cold, filled with locked doors, cameras, and security panels that scanned fingerprints and eyes. Daniel felt like he had stepped into another world, one where truth was heavy and secrets lived everywhere. He and Lena were placed in a research room filled with computer screens, radar displays, scientific models, and dozens of people working endlessly. The atmosphere was tense. It was clear that everyone was trying to understand something that refused to be understood. Daniel realized that they were not the first to see unusual objects. There were old files, old videos, old radar logs. The impossible had happened before, only quietly. A general entered the room while they were reviewing the footage. He was tall, serious, and spoke in a low, commanding voice. We know this object, he said. It has appeared several times in the past months, only for a few seconds, but never this close. He stared at Daniel. Your footage is the clearest we have, and we believe the object may return. The thought made Daniel's chest tighten. He had expected fear, maybe confusion, but the general's voice carried something else: anticipation. For 3 days, Daniel and Lena worked non-stop. They examined the craft's movement frame by frame. They studied how the stars bent around it. They calculated the distances it traveled in a blink. Every number pointed to one conclusion. The craft ignored the laws of physics. It did not accelerate. It did not slow down. It did not react to gravity. It simply existed where it wanted to exist. How is that possible? Daniel whispered one evening. Lena sighed, tapping her pen on the table. Maybe our laws of physics are not universal, she said. Maybe the universe has deeper rules we haven't learned yet. On the 4th night, just before midnight, an alarm echoed through the base. The screens turned red. Sirens pulsed through hallways. Soldiers rushed past with weapons. Scientists ran toward the monitoring room. It's here, someone shouted. It's over the base. Daniel and Lena hurried toward the control room. Everyone stared at the main screen. A silver-blue object floated above the base, glowing lightly in the dark sky. Cameras zoomed in. It was the same craft, smooth, flawless, silent. Daniel's heart pounded. He had seen it before, but the feeling of seeing it again was overwhelming. The craft hovered low, almost as if it wanted to be seen clearly. The air beneath it rippled. Dust rose upward instead of falling. Energy readings spiked across the monitors. It's affecting gravity, one scientist said in disbelief. No, another corrected. It's creating its own field. It's controlling it. The craft slowly rotated. Strange symbols glowed on its metallic surface, symbols that shifted like liquid, forming patterns no one recognized. The base was silent as everyone watched. Then something impossible happened. The craft created a shimmering circle of air beneath it, like a ripple on the surface of water, except it was floating in the sky. The ripple expanded outward, glowing brighter and brighter, scientists whispered. Soldiers held their breath. Even the general took a step forward. What is it doing? Daniel whispered. Lena shook her head. I think it's opening something. The ripple grew until it surrounded the entire craft. For a moment, the craft was visible through a glowing ring of distorted space. Then it bent inward, as if folding space itself. The craft slid forward and disappeared through the ripple. Instantly, the entire base went dark. Lights flickered and died. Computer screens shut off. The power generators hummed and then stopped. Alarms failed. Radios went silent. Daniel felt the hair on his arms rise. It was as if the craft had drained the energy of the entire facility. For 3 long minutes, the base stayed dark. Only emergency lights eventually blinked back on. People gasped. Soldiers shouted. Scientists shook their heads in disbelief. What did it do? Daniel asked. The general looked pale. It took everything, power, energy, signal, like it shut us down. After the blackout, meetings were tense. Officials demanded answers that no one had. Scientists debated everything. Some believed the craft was hostile. Others said it was simply testing the limits of human technology. But Daniel felt something deeper. The craft had not harmed them. It had not attacked. It had not destroyed anything. It had simply watched and then demonstrated that it could do things beyond human understanding. Later that night, after everyone left the research room, Daniel found Lena staring at the blank screen. Are you okay? He asked. She nodded slowly. Daniel, this isn't random. It came to the observatory. It came to this base. It showed us its abilities. It wants something. Daniel swallowed. What do you think it wants? She looked at him with a calm, serious expression. I don't think it wants to hurt us. I think it wants us to see. It wants us to learn. Daniel sat beside her. The night felt heavy, full of mystery. Somewhere out there, he knew, the craft was watching again, waiting, preparing for something bigger, and the world was no longer the same. The days that followed the blackout were filled with tension, fear, and endless questions. Scientists argued, officials whispered behind closed doors. Soldiers doubled their patrols. But despite all the noise inside the base, Daniel felt a strange silence inside his heart. He could not stop thinking about the craft. Not because he feared it, but because he felt it was trying to communicate. Every move it made felt intentional, like it was waiting for humans to understand something. Late one night, Daniel was studying the symbols that had appeared on the craft's surface. He enlarged them on a screen, tracing the glowing shapes with his eyes. They were not letters, not numbers, not anything familiar. Yet there was a pattern to them, a rhythm, a flow. Like language and mathematics woven together. Lena entered the room quietly and stood beside him. Still trying to decode them, she asked softly. Daniel nodded. It feels like they're trying to show us something we're not ready to understand. Lena sighed and sat down. Maybe understanding comes slowly. Maybe this is just step one. Before Daniel could respond, the base alarm buzzed softly, not the loud emergency alarm, but a silent alert meant only for scientists. They looked at each other, confused. No one had touched the system. Daniel checked the monitor. A message had appeared. Not from a satellite, not from another lab, not from any human source. It was the same symbols they had seen on the craft glowing softly on the screen. Daniel's breath caught. Lena, it's sending us a message. As soon as he touched the screen, the message stopped. The symbols faded. But then, something even stranger happened. The room lights flickered as if responding to the message. The computers buzzed softly. A deep, humming vibration filled the air. It's here, Lena whispered. I can feel it. Suddenly the building shook, not from an explosion, but from a shift in the air. Scientists ran into the hallway. Soldiers shouted orders. Daniel and Lena rushed outside. Above the desert base, a massive glow lit the sky. The craft had returned, but this time, it was different. It was larger, brighter, more defined. The air around it bent and twisted like liquid glass. Space itself seemed to open and close around it, forming ripples that stretched across the sky. The general ran forward, shouting commands, but his voice faded as the craft lowered gently, silently, into the center of the base. It hovered just above the ground, spinning slowly in place. Wind swirled around it, not from engines but from the strange energy that flowed from its surface. Everyone stood frozen. Daniel stepped forward without thinking. Lena grabbed his arm. Daniel, stop. But he shook his head. I don't think it wants to hurt us. The craft pulsed with light, responding as though it understood him. Then, a beam of soft, white-blue light extended from beneath it and touched the ground. It spread out like water, forming a wide circle. Inside the circle, shimmering images began to rise like floating pieces of glowing dust that formed shapes. It was a hologram, a massive, beautiful hologram that hovered in the air for everyone to see. At first, it showed stars, millions of them, in a map of the galaxy. Then the image zoomed out, revealing the universe like a vast ocean of light. Silence filled the base as the hologram moved, tracing paths between distant worlds. Finally, it focused on one glowing star system far away from Earth. A single planet lit up brighter than all the others. Daniel whispered, "That's where they're from. That must be their home." The craft pulsed again, as if confirming his words. The hologram shifted into a new pattern. This time, It displayed mathematical equations far more complex than anything known to human science. Lines curved in impossible ways, symbols twisted into spirals. The equations described motion without inertia, energy without fuel, travel without distance. They were showing how their craft moved, how it bent space, how it ignored the laws of physics, how it existed beyond the rules humans understood. Lena stared at the equations with wide eyes. "This is a new physics," she whispered, "a completely new way to understand the universe." For a moment, everyone was silent. The base was filled not with fear, but with wonder. Then the hologram changed once more. This time, it showed Earth. The Earth as seen from space, blue and green, and bright. Then tiny points of light appeared around it, marking the places where sightings had occurred. The lights formed a pattern, a spiral expanding outward. Daniel felt chills. "They've been mapping us," he said softly. "Studying us, watching our world." But the pattern did not feel threatening. It felt gentle, curious. The hologram dissolved, and the beam of light retracted into the craft. Everyone held their breath, unsure what would happen next. The craft slowly tilted upward. The air shimmered with bright energy. Then, just as before, space rippled like water. A clear circular portal opened behind it, glowing and alive. Like a doorway to another world, Daniel stepped forward again, unable to stop himself. "Are you leaving?" he asked softly, as if the craft could hear him. The craft pulsed once bright and warm, like a nod dot, then it began to ascend, slowly rising through the ripple. Daniel felt a deep ache in his chest, a strange connection he could not explain. It felt like saying goodbye to something he had always known but never met. The craft slipped through the portal and vanished. The ripple closed behind it. Silence returned. The night sky above the desert was calm again, as though nothing had happened. But everyone in the base stood frozen, unable to move. They had witnessed something no human had ever seen. Communication from a craft that broke every law known to science. The general stepped forward, his face no longer stern but humbled. "We have to tell the world," he said quietly. "We can't hide this anymore. Humanity deserves to know." Lena turned to Daniel. "Do you realize what this means?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, we're not alone, and the universe is much bigger than we ever imagined." As they looked up at the sky, Daniel felt something he had never felt before. Not fear, not confusion, but hope. The craft had not come to harm them. It had come to teach them, to show them the truth. The laws of physics had been broken. Reality had opened its doors, and humanity had taken its first step into a new age.